Hi, I'm DeDe Soto with the Soto Law Group, and we are here to talk about funding today. The big F word, right? No, not that. We're going to talk about funding. That's the F word we're going to talk about today. What does funding mean? So there are various different types of funding. Some you can change ownership of the asset and put it in the name of your trust. Others goes by designation or beneficiary. Here at the Soto Law Group, we help you with all of your funding. Here at the Soto Law Group, we like to talk about funding. And what does that mean? A lot of attorneys do not like to talk about funding. They send you a letter that says, oh, by the way, don't forget to fund your trust. Well, here at the Soto Law Group, we like to fund the trust because we want to make sure your beneficiaries are protected should something happen to you, should you pass away, or if you become incapacitated. Why a lot of attorneys don't talk about funding is because they're going to collect more fees if it has to go through probate or if you have to get a conservatorship in order to fund your trust. That's not what we're all about here at the Soto Law Group. Here at the Soto Law Group, we like to put your assets on a spreadsheet. We classify it as real property, life insurance, personal property, retirement accounts, and within each line item, we go and tell you how that asset is supposed to be titled or passed by beneficiary. You want to avoid probate. So trust funding is not just making sure certain assets are titled in the name of the trust, but it's also making sure that you have designated beneficiaries for certain assets, such as your retirement plans. So here at the Soto Law Group, we like to designate your trust as the primary beneficiary of your life insurance. Many people always ask why. Well, I'm going to give you a little example here, but you got to follow me. Okay. So if you designate your spouse, your current spouse, as the primary beneficiary of your life insurance policy, she's or he will get that $1 million. But if your spouse was to remarry and that marriage went south, that second marriage and their children could get your $1 million policy because of California's community property laws. And if it's commingled, it becomes community property. So a better way that we like to suggest is that you put the primary beneficiary as your trust. Then when you pass, your trust splits into, let's say, two buckets, the survivor's bucket and the decedent's bucket, or the person that passed. So that $1 million policy is in the decedent's bucket for the benefit of your surviving spouse. But if the surviving spouse was to remarry, we have a clause that says, oh, by the way, surviving spouse, in order for you to dip into this bucket over here with that $1 million life insurance policy, you have to have a prenuptial agreement. Then the surviving spouse can dip into it for health, education, maintenance, and support. But if that second marriage was to go south, guess what? That second marriage is not going to have a community property interest in your life insurance policy because we have kept it separate. And we have a prenuptial agreement that says second spouse has no access to this bucket. Make sense? I know it can be complicated. Give us a call. We'll walk you through it. Another asset that people often ask about are LLCs that hold real property or their businesses. Many times people will have LLCs, but they're not assigned to their revocable trust. And then that LLC could end up in probate. And again, we don't like probate. Probate's a bad word and it can cost 5% of the fair market value. So the whole purpose of putting your real property into these LLCs is to protect that asset, right? But you also want to protect it at death. And by assigning it to your revocable trust, you're protecting it at death and it doesn't go through probate. And you may have an S corporation. So if you have an S corporation, what do you do with your business? How do you make sure that it doesn't go through probate? Well, that is done through your corporation, right? So many times you have stock certificates. So we will assign your stock certificate to your trust, or we will place your stock in the name of your trust, and therefore you avoid probate. So these are just some of the commonalities that I see people make, some of the mistakes they make in funding their trust. So here at the Soto Law Group, we walk you through to make sure that your trust is funded the proper way. So here at the Soto Law Group, we want to make sure that your trust is fully funded, whether that means transferring the assets into the trust or making sure the designated beneficiary is the trust. It has to be fully funded, or else when you pass on, your beneficiaries are going to incur additional fees and costs through probate. And it's not a fun process.